This is where the fun begins.
It is settled then. My wealth will fund the rebellion while Garm provides our fleet and Mon Mothma our soldiers.
Are you sure? So be it. Did you miss me?
CAF. Lots of it. For me and for the Ready Room. I have a feeling this mission is not one we can fly in our sleep.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to CAF Chats. How are you guys doing? And welcome to the channel OG Star. I am your host, Alora. And today we are switching gears, pausing on New Jedi Order lore talk, going into Star by Star next Thursday. Holy crap, we already made it halfway through. Well, basically, that's kind of the halfway point. Basically near that, but it is one of the most phenomenal piece of lore or events within the timeline of the New Jedi Order series. But today we are getting into the construction and the destruction of the Death Star, as well as Operation Skyhook. Why? Well, if you haven't tuned in from last week and the week previously from then, when I was talking about this, I have decided to give some grace and time lore talk to the events of the Real Rebel Alliance and the events of the destruction of the Death Star in lieu to Anbore being shared. That's the Disney full lore version of what's going on during that timeline. And if you like that, then you like Disney, fake Disney full lore Star Wars. And more power to you. But here we are going to go over the true historical events pertaining to the true Star Wars. And so we'll get into this here pretty soon. I have an awesome PowerPoint put together with a lot of interesting events. I like to break down the events and go into more of what happened, like the construction, the test sites, where you find the material, where they found the materials, all of that. I like to get into all of those details as well, because that gives you a bigger insight to what went into not only the Rebel Alliance's finding the plans. Yes, there was a few plans that were scattered strategically, because they knew these rebels, at the time it was rebels, it wasn't fully formed Rebel Alliance just yet, but they knew that these rebels were pushing back and had discovered the Death Star and the purpose of it, and wanted to find a way for to destroy it. And getting the Death Star plans was that way to find anything that could possibly be a way to destroy it. And then we'll get into Operation Skyhook. So I'm going to go ahead and say hello. We have 26 people here so far. We've been climbing up to almost near 100. even in cat chat on Thursdays whenever I go live. So thank you guys so much for spending your time and hanging out and creating conversation around these topics, these lore topics. You guys are fucking amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, and I know I don't ask this very much, but what is in your mug? What are you enjoying? Are you enjoying a cup of CAF like I am? It's 9 a.m. here, or well, past 9 a.m. where I live at. Wherever you're at, hopefully you're enjoying something that is lively, refreshing, comforting, and maybe you have a snack and you're ready to sit down and discuss real Star Wars with me on top of Star Wars new, and this news including the Disney faux lore crap. So let me see who's in the chat. So we have Andrew here, very first, like and subscribe. Thank you so much. And I love your Death Star right there. And then Star Wars Marvel Purist, a mod and channel member. Force choke that like button on your way in. Subscribe to the channel and share to the stream out on all social media platforms. Yes. And of course, when you become a channel member, and I highly recommend it, you can use the emojis that I created. You can get 10% off actual prints. And I did get a copy print of my Anakin. Well, actually, it's a Vader that I did, the 5x7 that I painted. This is Vader before the suit. Okay. And I have to reprint because it's the color's kind of off. I want to make sure when I make prints of the art that I sell, I want to make sure it matches up close to the colors, the tones, shades, what have you, to the original piece, so that because you're getting a copy of the original piece, right? So I want to make sure that it's near as possible to the same. I got a print of it and it needs to be adjusted. And then I'll, once I get to the right shade, color, all that, then they will be available. So what I'm saying here is you get 10% off any prints. So become a channel member. That's one of the perks there. And Pira says, help combat the unhinged communists that are trying to ratio my Anbore is communist propaganda video. I've made it on the Saltier Than Crate subreddit, and the authoritarians are big mad. Yeah, I've seen that. I've been watching that go down. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, they get so unhinged about a lot of stuff. When it comes to something they really like, and that if you have one inkling of dislike about what they like, they totally just go pure rage against you. It's so funny. You can't, because they like it, because the critics, right? Because the critics are always fucking right? They're not paid to like something, really, right? But anyways, because they like it and it's been well talked about, you should like it too. You know, like you should just conform to the hive mind. Really, that's what they're saying. And I'm seeing people on our side doing the same bullshit. You have to conform to the hive mind, or we're just gonna talk all kinds of shit to you. Okay, all right, that's how it is, right? All right. And Tommy Doyle, I had a mute some shills since they won't shut up. Hell, everyone. Hello, Tommy, how are you doing? And Anakin Batsy is here. Hello. And Sick Amor, Tarkin did nothing wrong. And Conrado is here. Rock, paper, and scissors. Fifth the like button on. Real pre-Star Wars, A New Hope incoming. And I don't see my Vato here, so Assassin, hopefully all is well. He jumps in when he absolutely can. I know he works and stuff too, so shout out to him. Silver is here with the CAF, and yeah, and the thinking. And sadly, no Grand Moff deepfake cameos in Anbore. And Brandon is here. Good morning to you. Richard Quinn, hi there. The power to destroy a planet is insignificant compared to the power of the Force. Darth Vader, A New Hope. All right. Rogue Squadron is just a long book. I'm on chapter 22. Rogue Squadron from the X-Wing series, and that's what it's called. It's not called the Rogue Squadron series, and then the other part is not called the Red Squadron series. It is all Rogue Squad, not Rogue, fucking say. It's all X-Wing series. And that's how it's always been labeled. Again, another revisionist history when now they're trying to relabel the EU in its entirety, with some series being broken up into different two and so on and so forth. Don't fall for that shit, and don't repeat that rhetoric. Tommy says such well that, oh, right here. Yeah, I see what you're saying. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And Lucas, good afternoon to you. How are you doing? May the Schwartz be with you. Hey, Jack of all casuals. How are you doing? I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited to get started, like talking the lore and all this stuff. And did you know, because this is the topics we have, the lore talk for the Death Star and Operation Skyhook. And of course, the Lucas facts, which is a simple Lucas fact here. Some of you guys may know, some of you guys may not, but just very simple, nothing really too like out there. And then book of the week. And then we get into Cringe Factor. And this time, Cringe Factor is not by Screen Rant. And it's about Filoni gatekeeping and such. And, you know, so this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a fun Cringe Factor if that goes together. But yeah, you know what I mean. Let's see here. Silver Orc says, Ogre says, Disney can eat a bag of dicks. I'm looking for used books of the EU. Yes, and you can go, there's various sites. Thrift Books is what I recommend, and you can also do the standard Amazon, eBay. There's other sources too out there. I really need to comprise alternative sources to find your non-Legends books, labeled books, the real copies, right? I just got a couple of comics, and I'm filling in the comics I don't have in Legacy, from the Legacy era, the comics. And so I just got in yesterday Volume 4 and Volume 5 of Legacy. So Volume 4 is Alliance, and Volume 5 is Hidden Temple. And Volume 5, Hidden Temple, is a badass cover. You have Cade and his uncle Bantha on the front there. And they are looking like true masculine Skywalker's bossmen in the front cover. Very amazing there. Let's see here. Good morning to Nerd Migos. How are you doing? And then let's see here. Pro Jack fan is here. I'm currently reading Dark Lord Rise of Darth Vader. It's great. Oh, what chapter are you on? Yes, it's a friggin' great story. Has a lot of, like, you have Vader now casting Anakin's personality to the side. Like, Anakin's weak, and he's talking about how he is adjusting to the suit, all of that. What's going on between him and Palpatine, his what's going on with, Jedi survivors. Very good book. Very good book. Okay. Brandon says, I'm like third of the way through reread of Labyrinth of Evil. Awesome. A reread. Rereads are fun because you discover something that you didn't notice on the first read, right? And it's always a great adventure to do that. And here we go. Cap chat, elitist. Yes, we are the elitist, right? That's the word that they try to use against people like me, purists, those who love the pre-Disney lore. And especially when we talk a lot and refer back to the larger part of the lore, EU elitists. That's what they try to use to as a negative connotation against us. And you know what? I embrace it. I embrace that. And I flip it around so it's no more that way. Pierre says, Allura about to start covering the YJK series. Yes, member streams. Yes, I am. And I will announce that here pretty soon. I'll get into more details here pretty soon. We have a lot of fun on those listen parties. Join the fun. Yes, become a channel member. Join the fun. I am looking at, might as well just talk about it now. Just get it, and then I'll repeat it later on. Oops. I hate when you're looking at your phone to pull up your calendar, and then someone texts you and it goes to the text. So we're looking at June. I'm thinking June 1st. June 1st. I'm thinking about starting June 1st. So if not, June 8th for definite. So stay tuned for that. And probably 6 p.m. Sunday, June 1st. However, if there is a powwow, I may push it to the next one because I do travel. So the time I travel around and dance at powwows, compete at powwows. All right. Let's see here. What are you guys saying? Operation Skyhook is greater than Rogue One. Cheers to that. I raise my mug of CAF to that. Cheers to that. And let's see here. Yes, the entire Dark Lord trilogy is awesome. All 9s and 10s. Let's see here. And they are trying to ratio me. My likes are down 50. Wow. Last time I think you said it was like 60 something, right? Holy crap. You fucking triggered a lot of people. You know, I wanted to do, you know, I just need, let me see. What do I have on deck that I need to finish putting together for a video? I just have to do, oh, this one has nothing to do with Anbore, but it has to do with the Tales of the Underworld. That's on deck to be published on YouTube here. Even with those type of videos, I do trigger a lot of people. But right now, Anbore seems to be the biggest triggering point for the Disney shows. And I'm even calling people that are supposed to be on our side fighting against Disney and the destruction of, you know, Star Wars and Marvel, all of that. I'm finding that I'm calling those people shills too, because they're shilling fucking hard and they're using the same rhetoric that the established shills use already. So they're falling into that trap. They are falling into that trap. But as many views as I have subscribers, it's a net positive. Yeah. So what's the saying? Bad reviews are still good reviews. It gets you attention in the algorithm, right? So there you go. I dropped a couple of people after I said that. That's funny. All right. I will never surrender to the shield hive mind. Yeah, don't do it. That's a terrible place to be. Let's see here. Justice for Guy Henry. All right, let's see here. And I see, oh, Soul Assassin is here. I'm scrolling down. I finally see that you're here. Smash the like button. So I play that video sparingly. Last time I played my Valtho video for you, of course, I got I got a warning, and so it doesn't hurt the channel or anything like that. But I've got to re-edit that video, but I need to really dispute it so that I don't have to worry about re-editing. So I think I am. Damn power outage. Dude, you guys go through a lot of power outages over there. What the hell's going on? What is going on? When you go silent, I guess that's the power outage, right? Soul just got back into the country. He was visiting some relatives. Tell us about Operation Skyhook. Let's see here. And there we go. All right, so you guys, I had a lot of fun putting together this PowerPoint that we're going to get into for the construction and destruction of the Death Star and Operation Skyhook. But let's go ahead and get into the book of the week and Lucas facts before we get into the lore talk. So, but with that being said, I'm going to play this because I need to clear my throat. What do I want to play? You know what? Because we are still in the New Jedi Order Renaissance phase and stuff, but even though we're not talking about it, let's go ahead and pay homage to it because, like I said, we're going into Star by Star next Thursday. Holy shit, we're already there. That is going to take a lot of time to cover.
I had fought the worst of all wars and witnessed the redemption of evil. I have seen balance restored to the Force. But order can turn to chaos, as it did when I was born. Now, with my loved ones and my loyal allies, I face a new challenge unlike any before. And I'm not sure this time we can win.
Star Wars Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore, the first novel of the new Jedi Order.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
All right. So Lucas fact here, like I said, it's short, simple, and sweet. This is regarding Return of the Jedi, my absolute top favorite of the 6 movies. June 15th through 17th, 1982. A Steadicam film is shot in Redwood National Park for use as forced backgrounds during the speeder bike chase. Steadicam inventor Garrett Brown filmed these shots walking down a path and shooting at less than 1 frame per second by walking at about 5 miles per hour and projecting the footage at 24 frame per second. That's what I'm guessing it is per second. The motion seen in the film appeared as if it were moving at around 120 miles per hour. So I wanted to share this little fact here. So when you go and watch the chase scene and in the indoor forest there, when Luke and Leia pursue or get chased by the stormtroopers and stuff on the speeders, that's how they recorded it. So I thought that was a very interesting Lucas fact to share. Using the technology the way they could during the time, the time of film history where, the technology wasn't as advanced as we know now. So I thought that was very, very interesting. That speeder chase there, amazing, fun to watch. We get to see a little bit of how Leia is skilled with the speeder, a little bit of homage to, her father, Anakin Skywalker, with the abilities and stuff like that. But, again, we do see Luke, he's basically all the twins. He's the better pilot. And that's even elaborated in the EU, how he's much more better pilot. And that's why we never see Leia in taking the X-Wing or anything like that. And one part I like about that is after, Luke jumps off his speeder and he ignites his saber, we get to see, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this may have been taken. No, I take that back. This is the first time we see, and again, if I'm wrong, let me know. But I'm not completely sure of this, but I feel I am okay with this. But anyways, this is the first time we see him deflect blaster bolts. A Jedi deflect blaster bolts with their lightsaber, which is fucking cool. Another reason why I love the show, the movie, is because we see some new things that are later used either in the lore or in the prequel trilogy. So very fun there. And I do have a super chat here. Thank you so much, Brandon the Awesome. So channel member, $5 super chat. My copy of Darth Vader and the Cry of Shadows just came in, hardcover and without the Legends label as well. I have struck gold. Long live the EU. Okay, awesome. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for supporting the channel. And yes, I agree. Speeder chase top tier. Yes. So George and crew was able to play with the technology, expand on it. So we see it later, like with the pod racing and all that. And it's fucking amazing. That's right. He does it on the boat. That's right. See, I should know this. He does it on the barge too. So yeah, so that the barge is, but what I mean by this is this is the first time being seen in Revenge of the Sith. Of course, the barge. Can't forget about that, right? Can't forget about, there's so much going on the barge. I forgot about that. See, I forget some things. Shit. And that's my favorite show. That's my favorite movie. Lightsabers can deflect blaster bolts, but not slug rounds, aka bullets. Now I wait for the shield's reactions, right? If you post that, you could post the simplest facts, like looking at the word shit that, a faux lore character they brought in of Bail Organa, and say, oh, this is the equivalent, this is the Star Wars equivalent of the word. and you can fucking trigger everybody, every single shill possible. And then those people like EFAP and stuff get triggered too. They don't fucking read it. It's like I wasn't even telling them, I wasn't even suggesting that their faux lore, Bell Organa, should have said those words. I'm saying these are the equivalent to that. And they fucking went off the hooks. It was funnier than hell. I had a good time reading through all of it. So much awesome in Return of the Jedi. It's hard to keep track. I agree. But again, like that right there, like, so when you see the barge and everything that's going on, there's so much happening there, and it's not a clusterfuck, or I'm not trying to say that, because it's not, but there's so much dynamics going on the barge from get down from there, from Han trying to help out Lando after he gets knocked down almost into the pits. And and then Luke fighting off those around him and then cutting off the rope or whatever from Boba Fett. There's so much stuff going on, to saving Leia. There's so much going on, and well done, very action packed there. And I might have to watch that today now. Lucas says, I've given New Jedi Order another pause and started the Calista trilogy. Dudes, I have these cats just jumping around me these days. I'm on the half of the Children of the Jedi, a pretty decent book. Not gonna lie, I can't wait to get into Star by Star, my next book in New Jedi Order. Perfect. You're starting that just in time for Thursday. Awesome. Andor is so edgy that they show blood. Andor is peak, bruh. It's peak Star Wars. Well, it's peak Disney Star Wars. And you know what? I'm going to say this. I've said this on Twitter. I'm going to say it here, because this is what I truly believe. And these people who are now praising Andor, they're supposed to be on our side, right? They would repeat nearly the same rhetoric when they're talking about the shows they don't like, right? But the bar is so fucking low, set low by Disney Star Wars, by Disney Lucasfilm, by all their half-assed production. That bar was set low. It was relatively low. When they say they have a clean slate by tossing the EU, they basically buried that fucking bar. They did clean slate bullshit. They buried the bar in the bullshit, because after that, they begin to fail to link the lore together, keep continuity to the movies, right? And they destroyed the foundation so they can fucking bury that bar. And so that bar is not, if one of the productions clears the bar, it doesn't go very high over that bar. So when it does, that's when, oh my God, this is a master class, blah, 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 blah. They go on master class, masterpiece, best writing ever, intellectual, sophisticated. Why? Because it barely cleared that fucking bar that was set by Disney Lucasfilm. And that's what you call cope. They're coping for hope, right? They're doing the hopium. And they want to make it sound like they are defending Star Wars against Disney. They are not. What they are doing is hoping for Disney Star Wars to get better under Disney. Now, how can you defend Star Wars, the original Star Wars, and use that as your premise to for your rhetoric, but then at the same time hoping for better Star Wars under Disney? It doesn't make fucking sense. And I agree, they are using Dave Filoni and his subpar writing as foil to try to elevate Tony Gilroy's subpar writing and sway favor to their favorite Disney show. That's exactly it. And we'll get into that when we get into Cringe Factor. That will be something we can discuss here pretty soon. But we need to get through the lore, which is the lore talk here pre-Disney Star Wars, real true Star Wars lore is the meat and potatoes of this channel, but I do reflect, I do bring to light what's the bullshit that is going on within the greater quote-unquote community and Disney Star Wars. And so we'll get into all of that. So I've even seen people post that Anbore is better than the OT. Yes. I've said that Gilroy is better than George. I will leave that here now. I have a super chat again, and then we'll get into book of the week. But with that being said, what is your favorite scene in Return of the Jedi? I was going to say Revenge of the Sith. Return of the Jedi. What is your favorite scene in Return of the Jedi? And Brandon again with the $5 super chat. Thank you again for supporting the channel member 2. Anbore is the ITSV of Star Wars with the Superman fandom. The bar has been set so low since 2008. Fans, quote unquote fans, are willing to consume any slop they put out. And do you notice, I'm just going to go here and I'm probably repeat this again, but you notice a lot of these people praised Filoni and they didn't even care or notice that Filoni was destroying Star Wars since 2008, right? But all of a sudden now it's good to speak against Filoni because they are putting Tony Gilroy on a pedestal. Have you noticed that? Notice all the rhetoric changing right now. And it'll shift again once another thing comes out and they have something to bitch about or whatever. It's always going to shift. There's no consistency there. None whatsoever. None whatsoever. And I see Scran is in the chat and Dwight Jeffries. Let's see here. All right, so let's get into, I see that you guys, I have Dwight Jeffries and I don't know what the hell's going on, but he's spamming the chat. So any mods, if you want to go ahead and put him in timeout or just block him, feel free to do so. I don't know what's going on there, but let's go ahead and get into the next one. We're going to get into book of the week, but I'm going to go ahead and play this.
Someone asked me to give the best.
Whoopsie. I forget that it changes back once I switch screens.
Someone asked me to give the best reason why someone should read the expanded universe. After giving it a lot of thought, here's what I have to say. The expanded universe respects the reader. In the expanded universe, Luke Skywalker's optimism continues where it left off in Return of the Jedi. He's fulfilled hope to the galaxy, just like Obi-Wan said he would, not like the Disney movies where he gave up on the Jedi or even the whole galaxy for that matter. The character you see in those movies is not Luke. Luke isn't a quitter. He's not a pessimist. He's a leader. He's inspirational. And he's always there for his friends in times of need. Another character is Han Solo. He's introduced to us in A New Hope as a loner, a man who cares only for himself and nobody else. But by the end of Return of the Jedi, that all turns around when he finally finds friends he can trust and a true love to spend the rest of his life with. And that's exactly what he does in the expanded universe. Han is a devoted husband and father to Leia and their kids. He loves his family above all else. In the new movies, Han turns out to be a selfish deadbeat dad who ran out on his family when things get tough. It's a complete 180 from the character that we saw from Return of the Jedi. Now, another thing the EU does is it rewards its readers. Attention to detail when it comes to continuity has never been done at such a level as when it was performed by the expanded universe. Avid readers will constantly be rewarded for their diligence as comics, novels, video games, and even children's books share connections throughout the entire series, making it almost a flawless, continuous story. And though it has its minor flaws, it's still The best overall story and continuity out there, period. That's what the EU does. It respects and rewards its readers. And that's the best reason you should give it a try. Long live the expanded universe.
I hate to say it, but it looks like the item you're searching for doesn't exist.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
All right, so here we go. I don't know what's going on with this person here. He's been getting blocked and he keeps returning. But that dude, that's not the place and time for this. Why don't you call authorities if you need help? But anyways, let's pursue on. Here we go. The book of the week. Of course, since we're talking about the Death Star, why not just tie the Death Star book novel in it with it here today? So 51 beautiful souls here listening in, watching, and being a part of the conversation. Please hit that like button, become a channel member. And if you don't is what I meant. If you don't have this book on your shelf, you can feel free to find it without the Legends label. I always recommend it without the Legends label. You can go with you can go with like thrift books or what have you. There's so many resources out there for you to find it without the Legends label here. So Soul Assassin, I don't know if you're here, but thank you, Star Wars Marvel Pierce, for being here as well. All right. So the writer is Michael Reeves and Steve Perry. Steve Perry, he's the one that was one of the front runners for Shadows of the Empire. So these two teamed up for this. And here we go. So we have cover artist John Harris. Publications, the hardcover, October 2007, paperback, November 2008. And this book here is one of them that is takes place across a specific timeline. So from 3 to 0 BBY. 3 to 0 BBY. And so we get a bit history, like a bit of little historical timeline for the Death Star on what's going on with it. And I think it's an interesting read if you want to get into the background on the Imperial side, I guess you can say, of the Death Star and its construction and all of that. I highly recommend this. And the continuity notes here spans the battle station's last 3 years. Last minute editorial changes is the Admiral Mahdi's name. Given full name of Canon Antonio Mahdi, this coincides with George Lucas jokingly revealing the character's full name during the 2007 appearance on Late 9 with Conan O'Brien. So isn't that interesting? I almost shared that as a Lucas Facts, but I decided to go with a movie Lucas Fact on the development part, the filming part. But I wanted to share... I wanted to keep this here in continuity notes as another Lucas Facts and share that, you know, how there's a synergy between Lucas and the authors, and even a joke can be taken in and used as a part of the lore in a sense. So George, he's got this kind of humor that can be fun and dry at the same time, to where it confuses people, where people think George is serious, right? And I think that Michael and Steve, you know, once they heard that, they made the minute changes and paid homage to George's humor here with this character. So I thought that was really amusing. And so I just kept it here instead of Lucas Fact. I just kept it here as another Lucas Fact Part 2. And then going on with the rest of the continuity notes, including nods to Jedi Academy and the short story Interlude to Darknull. Its location shared. Its location shared in The Force Unleashed is absent due to the game's storyline not publicly disclosed until after the Death Star's publication. So the reason why we don't see, you know, information about Force Unleashed in this book yet is because they didn't want it to be released until after the novel, or after Force Unleashed, the novel, the game was published. So that's why we don't see the details here pertaining to the Force Unleashed. That's the only reason why. It's not like they're doing, they made a misstep on continuity. That's just how Lucasfilm wanted that to occur. They wanted the information of Force Unleashed to be published during that time, during the time of its release, and not revealed before then. There we go. Let me see. How many highbrow intellectuals do you know that don't read? Laughed my fat ass off. Oh, wait. Here are the Anbore fans. Correct. They can't even piece together. They don't question, like, where is the sector Moff, the sector governor, or Moff, for the sector, and I forgot the name of it. And it starts with an S, I believe, for Garmin. You know, there should have been a sector Moff. That would have made it a lot more easy for them to seize control of Gorman for whatever they need it for. And when we get into the lore, which we're going to get in here pretty soon, when we get into the lore, we're going to find out how the Empire didn't give a shit. They took what they needed when they needed it, and they also tested the laser on whatever they felt they needed tested on. They didn't give a shit because they confidently ruled the galaxy for near close to 18 standard years. It's kind of funny to see them falter and say, well, we got to stage this to make it look like the rebels did this or that, so we can get control of the mining operations there, to mine or whatever. Now, I get that they could stage propaganda against the rebels to make it look like they're bad, like that what happened to on Solon, to Katarn, to Morgan Katarn and their faction of rebels, right? I could see that they could stage something like that to make the forming rebel alliance look bad. But to gain control of a planet, they already had control of these systems already. So it doesn't, that right there, I have a lot of questions with that. But anyways, all right. Let's get into our lore facts. Let's see here. Soul Assassin, thank you for sending me the clip on George on Conan O'Brien. Cool. I will listen to that. I was going to share it here, but I don't want to listen to something that might be lengthy or whatever. So let's get into lore facts here. So let's play something else here. I usually like to play the clip from Matt Wilkins, but I already played that. Let's see here. No, I want to save that. You know what? Let's go ahead and do this. I'm very indecisive right now. That's kind of funny, but that's okay. Let's play this. Okay.
Jedi is something that came a little later. When we started building Jedis, we had a lot of Jedis, and we needed more and more Jedis. As we were doing them toward the end, we ended up with a lot of Jedis that looked like people that worked at ILM, with these short little haircuts and looked like they stepped out from behind a computer. And so I was saying we have to get more exotic Jedis. And so we only have so much resources to do these things, but I do have Twi'leks because we use them quite a bit in other areas in the Senate and as background action. So I have a sort of a wardrobe and a setup of certain kinds of characters. So it was a way of reinventing some of those characters. And I had realized that we had a comic book that has a Twi'lek in it that is a Jedi. There's a whole series actually of her. And I said, well, why don't we put her in this? I mean, she's a comic character, but we'll just fit her in and have her be a background character because that's exotic. That's how the Twi'lek Jedi ended up in the backgrounds of these shots, was to try to use some of the work and effort that the guys in the comic book world had put into things and characters they had created.
All right, let me go ahead and just make this full screen here. This was fun. It kind of shifted when I saved it and downloaded here on StreamYards, but it's not bad. But I had fun putting all this together. So let's see here. Oh, no. There we go. So here's the beginning here. So it is very handy to have the atlas, because the atlas not only gives you basically the atlas of like the universe, the galaxy, the planets, all of that, but it gives you historical timelines pertaining to the universe, to the galaxy. Hey, Melissa Lord, what are you doing? How are you doing? What are you doing? Obviously, you're probably working and listening in. Thank you for stopping in. Another channel member. All right, so we're getting into the construction and destruction of the Death Star, leading into Operation Skyhook. So this is one of my more lengthier PowerPoints. Yes, I nerd the fuck out on this shit for you guys because that's just how I am. So we know the first reveal of the Death Star, basically like historical, was not the OT, but historically was in Attack of the Clones. So I have that image here. And then I have the image of the Death Star 1 being constructed, bottom of that. And do you notice something? I'm pointing this out because of the inconsistencies that I see with the construction of the Death Star in the Disney full lore. Now here, and you'll see this even more as we go through the clips. Here you see the dish for the laser cannon basically is nearly completed here. Like you see, plates and everything still missing and what have you, but they're putting it all together here. When you get into the lore, their biggest thing was making sure that they have the cannon, the gun, all of that is one of the main focus of the construction, and having that all together. Now, was it fully operational? Like a couple of years before Yavin, it was partially. And in fact, we'll get into when the tests were done and all the stuff here. And the ultimate power in the universe, basically, this is from the Atlas. And it goes into not only the Death Star 1 and 2, but also like the other big projects, like the Eye of Palpatine and the Sun Crusher. So he has that. But this goes into, let me go ahead and open my page so that I can see more. Because I can't, like the screen here, it's like little writing. Let me see where did I thought it bookmarked it. I did not. I got it. No, I didn't. I pulled the paper out. Damn. Oh, no, I did. Okay. So getting into that, there's little things here that are like highlighted with certain colors. So red is the research site. So if you have the Atlas, you can open that up to page 169. The red is the research sites. The yellow planets are highlighted planets are the construction, raw material, etc. So, and then the green highlighted planets is a super laser, firing, test, and or combat. And then blue is the labor, where the labor was. And then purple is site of the rebel spy activity, sabotage, or combat. So that's what's going on in this map. So that's highlighting, and you still see all the hyperspace lanes and stuff here. It's always something that is shared within the original lore. And then you have like one of the Death Star plans being on the on display here, and this is Katarn, retrieving. So this is Dark Forces, Katarn retrieving the plans, and on the bottom is Leia leaving Topra. And the plans, like there was about two or three, but the plans were beamed to her, not carried to her. And that's even stated in A New Hope. And that's even shared, and continuity is in line with the movie on that. So all the Death Star plans that were given are retrieved, stolen from the Empire, were then beamed to her. They were all taken. They were all present together by the time the operation on Topra happened. And so together they were beamed together to Leia on Tantive 4. So we'll get into that lore as well. And hi, Zagrat, how are you doing? I see you. All right, so let's get into this. So there's so much dynamics going on here that I like to share about the greater dynamics. All right, so designer and research site. So I thought this was very important that we break down all of this, and I probably won't go into a greater detail on all this, but I just wanted to give you an idea on what's going on. So designers, Bevel Lemisk is the engineer and architect. Geonosian Hives, Poggle the Lesser. Oh, I hate how that jumped up here. Hammer Tong is supposed to be down here. It jumped up. So he was one of the contributors to the architect design, of course, as we've seen in Attack of the Clones. And then Hammer Tong Project. I don't know why that's like that. That's weird. Okay, anyways. And it goes with, and then we have Oron Kaldor is an engineer. Nasdra Magrati, scientist, weapon designer. Wraith Cyanar, originator of the concept for the Death Star. So that there's lore behind that. I'm not going to get into details because we see like Poggle the Lesser is the one that presented that. There's the Geonosians play a big part in this, and so does Ryan Cyanar. And then Quizux is the scientist, weapon designer as well. Umak Leth is the chief weapon engineer. So weapon designer, Nasdra and Kui. And then we have the weapon engineer. So, and they were tricked. Kui and Nasdra was tricked into thinking that they're doing this for another reason. They had no idea what the Death Star was truly about. And so you can read more about that in the lore. Very interesting. Tol Cybron is chief administrator of the Maw installation. So Tol is the one that is the administrator for the Maw installation. So the sites: Project Hammer Tong, Megiddo, and Gorno. So these are the planets where it took place, the sites. Super Laser Site, Varn and Equinox. I probably said that wrong. And Dubrillion. And so that's where the super laser sites were it was constructed. Site of the CIS, the CIS, super laser experiments, Chromu and Chromu. And then these are the other sites that where the design and research facilities took place, or they were taken to or hidden at: Coruscant, Thelma, and Tapara. So you see how it's kind of scattered a little bit because they were trying to keep it a secret for a long while. Yeah, the Emperor had Bevel killed so many times due to fail and destruction of the Death Star, but he needed him alive. So he in essence transferred his spirit to clone bodies, but Sidious kept killing him. Yeah, that was crazy, right? I know. But the Geonosians in Attack of the Clones. All right. So this right here, a little bit of history of this. I probably forgot to delete that. Hammer Tong Project, whatever. It's all good. All right. Sites. So this is the construction site and raw material. Now, I'm not going to get into detail, but we know that, according to Anbore, Gorman was a place to mine the substance, calcite or whatever it's called, for the lens of the Death Star. Okay. And then I questioned their process on how they are trying to take control of the planet when they could have just installed a sector governor or a moth who could then take control. Like the empire of the original lore was 10 times more badass. They didn't give a shit. They did not give a shit. All right. So the sites for construction site and raw material. Source of raw material: Gorgon. Construction: Geonosis, Patrim, and Huros. I got the O and the U wrong on this part here. And then Despire. Super laser construction site, Derimba. So those are the sites there. So super laser construction site, Derimba, construction, Geonosis, Petrim, and Despire. And then source of raw material, Gargan. And this is Despire, our Heroes right here. And here's a Death Star 1. So that's the picture you see here. And I'm keeping the map up here just to give an idea. I'm not going to say, oh, here they are. I was going to go and put circles over those planets as extra, but I didn't feel that extra. I was like tired by that time, by the time everything was put up together for you guys. Labor sites, Heroes and Despire. So this is where labor took place. Kashyyyk and the Maw. So Kashyyyk. And that's where I questioned, okay, Kashyyyk. Where does Kashyyyk, how come they didn't share, you know, the captive Wookiees from Kashyyyk working on the Death Star and stuff? I believe the Cyanide Systems, who were in business with the Grand Protectorate that had Palpatine kidnapped and brought to the works in the Plagueis novel right before the Meridian attack on Plagueis. A little bit of lore there too as well. It's so interesting to see all these politics happen while we talk about the basic construction of the Death Star, right? There's a lot going on, and I highly recommend, like, you can go one way with your read, and when you reread, you can discover something different. It's fucking amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. So, of course, this green planet is Kashyyyk. Right here is the Death Star 1 with the Spire. And then this black and white picture is basically just a comic illustrator of the Maw. What's going on over here. And this big old huge like blob looking facility is the Maw installation. So that's what's going on there. So it's pretty cool. And like I said, you know, it's pretty cool to go through and read and discover and rediscover, you know, things happening, events in the lore and other things that are happening behind, like in lieu of what's going on. Soul Assassin says, Force Unleashed had you save Wookiees from being shipped off world to work on the Death Star. It all connects, correct. And let's see here. Maw installation, nicest place to hide your Jedi friend during the Vong invasion. Correct. They reconstructed what was left of the Maw installation basically to hide the basically the order from the Peace Brigade and all this other stuff. And you know, so that's another interesting tie-in right there, right? We're talking about the New Jedi Order like next week, but that's another interesting tie-in. Let's see here. All right. But one thing I do question, because we know Natasi Dala hid in the Maw. Well, I wouldn't say they reconstructed the Maw installation, but there was, I probably am wrong, but there's another facility that they took and redid to as the outpost for the New Jedi Order during the time. But then I also wonder what happened to Natasi, because she's supposed to be hiding out in the Maw, right? So what's going on? But I know that, you know, there's so much, it's so big. It's not just one little tiny area. And there's so many little factions and places and to hide in there. So like the Rift too, the Kefal Rift or something like that, I think is in there. I'm not sure. That could be wrong. But there's so many different places in the Maw. I just wonder, like, okay, during all this, where was Natasi Dala and her fleet and stuff like that, you know? But we will find out later. All right, super laser test sites. Test our combat. Horaz, Despire. I'm really having a good time with the spelling of that. And Equinos, Dubrillion, the Maw, and test fired on the Jedi asteroid called the Red Twins, and destroyed by Tarkin, Atian, Petrim, and Alderaan. So, like I said, they don't give a shit about wanting to disguise their purposes. They went and used Aspire as a construction site, all of that, a facility, a research facility and construction site. And when the Death Star was like half operational, like the laser, Tarkin, basically, or whoever at the time, tested the laser on the Spire. Isn't that crazy? The Empire basically went in and took what they needed. They didn't care. The only time that they decided to like frame or organize the rebels as bad, as terrorists, I guess you could say, if you want to go use that word, is, for example, that I shared in Solon, where the imps disguised themselves as rebels, and they slaughtered the community, basically Morgan Katarn's community. They didn't give a shit. And then just before then, when Kyle Katarn was doing his final mission, basically to seal in his graduation, I guess that's what you could call it. I don't know, I'm probably saying it wrong. And they go to the asteroid where there is supposed rebel infiltrators and stuff like that. They too try to claim the rebels as something bad, and they didn't care. They went in and took control of it. But then, of course, Kyle Katarn was like, "Wait a minute, something doesn't feel right," and he doesn't know that that was just basically his Force instincts telling him. And so he spared some people and stuff. And I think they were told something different what's going on than what was going on that asteroid and stuff like that. So, you know, the Empire is so fucking shady. They don't care. That's my point. They don't care. Just as long as they aren't graping anyone while getting what they need. Vader draws the line there. Star Wars theory, correct. How very Sith-like. Take over, enslave the populace and drain the resources, then leave. Right? Do brilliant, New Jedi Order reference. Correct. There you go. Correct. You guys are funny. All right. So like I said, the Empire doesn't give a shit. Long story short, they are in control. They are led by a Sith Emperor. That doesn't give a fuck. So why should he give a fuck if someone like a government on a planet cares if they mine on it or not? They want it, they'll take it. But for some reason, it's got to be staged that, oh, this is just a cover-up to make the rebels look bad. And then the stupid Gamorreans or whatever, Gorman people, whatever, fell for it. Again, they went and put themselves in a secluded area after, like this, I'm talking about Disney fucking lore, okay? After it's reported that, you know, the Tarkin massacre did happen and that he landed the ship on them. So why would you then allow your people to congregate in one area for something like that to happen again? Wouldn't you have something to wear that is prevented again? Like, don't gather in masses together. I mean, I don't know. It's so fucking funny. I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my head around that, but hey, whatever. It is what it is. All right. So, rebel spy activity, sabotage, and combat. All right. Let me see what you guys are saying. Every faction in Disney is a pathetic version of its original incarnate. Right. The Empire, the Rebels, New Republic, Mandalorians, Night Sisters, the Jedi, etc. I agree. Tarkin is doing what the hooded knight told him. And let's see here. I remember seeing somewhere a clone trooper talking about a prison riot on the Death Star. We'll get to that. And wish they just dumped the entire cell block into space. That's brutal. Yeah, we'll talk about that. We're getting there. We're getting to Operation Skyhook. We're moving towards that. But like I said, I wanted to get deeper into what's going on, all these events, like where everything was constructed for the Death Star, where the tests were ran, where the labor was done, all of that. I wanted to get into all of that just to kind of make a bigger picture and how well this continuity of the Death Star was put together. People will go and say, oh, well, they fucked up on the continuity because the Death Star plans was taken by so many people, blah, 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 blah. We'll get into that. Retcons are not always a bad thing. Retcons are tying the lore together more coherently, makes for a better story, especially when you have a huge timeline that Lucasfilm designed through Star Wars over 35 years, basically, or so, of lore. You're going to have to make sure you go back and, re-tie some strings and stuff to make it more coherent. So, let me see here. So it's not, people try to use retcon as a bad word towards the original EU. No, it's not. I can find a video of Candoris justifying the Mandalorian Wars. All right, so here we go. Rebel spy activities. So these are the areas that took place. Sites: Do Brilliant, Heroes are Spire, Alderaan. Now, these are not just basically sabotage or combat spy activities. Like Alderaan was a place where, if you have read Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader, where Bail Organa allowed people to come in and protest that his country was, or his planet was a neutral place, right? I have 61 people listening. Thank you so much. Hit that like button. If you're listening on Twitter, thank you so much. Come over here and join the conversation. All right. So Alderaan, but that was a place where he could secretly have his meetings too and stuff like that. Like Bail was more covert than anything else. All right. And then you have Geonosis. And then Operation Skyhook, Toprawa. I keep on saying Toprawa. Yavin, Danuta, Reltier, and Katata. Hey there, Becky Brown. How are you doing? Nice to see you here. It retconning Bane of the Sith leads to the Darth Bane trilogy, so be it. Yeah. And then Operation Skyhook didn't have to just be about one rebel agent. No. In fact, breaking up the Death Star plans into many pieces makes Empire scary smart. And he is, and this is the thing. Palpatine was brilliant, and we see his brilliance in the PT. So when people say, oh, the PT's bad, never was good, what the fuck are you talking about? Or George Lucas didn't have any good writing towards the PT. He couldn't tell a good story, blah, blah, blah. Well, he was brilliant enough to show a villain as smart, cunning, and tactical as Palpatine. He's the GOAT, right? He orchestrated the war. He was the chess player with the Separatists against the old Republic, the Republic. And how he written that was fucking brilliant. On top of showing how Anakin turned to the dark side, there's a lot of depth going on in that. So I don't get why people are like, oh, it's so bad. That's, well, and then saying Anbore is better because of its writing than the PT and all this other stuff. I didn't see Tony Gilroy orchestrate such masterful storytelling that George did with Palpatine. And then also telling the fall and the manipulation of Anakin to the dark side. And I think people don't even realize that. They're just so hive mind right now to elevate this dude. It's fucking crazy, right? All right. Pyrrha says, if anyone coming in late could check out my Anbore is communist propaganda video, like ratio back up to 50%. Commie Redditors trying to ratio the video. Thanks. I liked it. These people are stupid. It's so fucking stupid. And to say that Anbore is better than the OT and the PT is fucking ridiculous. I just shared some points of some excellent writing, storytelling from George, like how he had Palpatine cunning, tactical, so pure evil. He orchestrated, he hid in plain sight and orchestrated both sides of the war. And it didn't take 3 episodes block of slow fucking storytelling to tell that story. Yeah, okay. All right, who's the smartest among the 3? Tarkin, Thrawn, or Palpatine? I'm going to say Palpatine overall, but he's just as cocky as Tarkin, while Thrawn is the calmest and collective mindset than Palpatine. Very interesting. Yeah, that's something to kind of contemplate, and that would be a good subject to talk about later, right? Thank you for pointing that out, AA. All right, so Dubrillion, Despire, Alderaan, Geonosis, and Operation Skyhook, Toprawa. Let's say I want to say Topara, Toprawa, Yavin, Danuta, Reltier, and Katata. Get in the fucking bin. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the Skyhook lore. Operation Skyhook. There's so much going on, and I think that once everything started coming to light about the Death Star plans, who stole a copy, and them starting to tie everything together, that it formed this beautiful synergy of of events. Operation Skyhook 2 BBY to 0 BBY. A lot of these took place in 1 BBY, but 2 probably is probably is the discovery of the Death Star plans, or the Death Star in general, and all of that, and then the capture. And so I would say one of the events leading to learning about the Death Star basically was when Bell and them were captured and held on the Death Star and what have you. So that's the Force Unleashed stuff. I didn't put on here, but that's one of the discoveries, or basically one of the main discoveries that will come into and at least give recognition to. So the battles are events. I should have put events on there, but like I said, I was doing this late at night and so on. 1 BBY, so these are all 1 BBY until we get to the bottom. Rescue from Star's End, Battle of Oran 3, Ambush of the Phoenix, Ambush of the Crone Drift, Battle of the Carpius system, and Battle of Atziri, and Raid above Coralia. And so those are some significant here. And we all know that Danuta was Katarn's mission. And you can read about it. You can play the game. It's, both in there. And so a lot of that, that's one of the missions that was held by Katarn and, of course, Jan Ors. So the two main, and we read about them, or we listened about their story with channel members. So become a channel member. We just finished that not too long ago. The whole trilogy of the Dark Force trilogy, novella trilogy. And that was amazing. So we not only got, some insight about that, just a lot of insight about Kyle Katarn and him becoming one of the pivotal players, not with just the rebellion, but also the Jedi. So basically that was his introduction story. And it was friggin' amazing. But, he's one of them that stole the Death Star plans. And I haven't played the game. I just know the story and I know a little bit about the game. But as gameplay, that's my weak point. I'm just like Matt Wilkins. That's my weak point. All right, let's see here. Thrawn had a backup clone to come back 10 years after his death. Palpatine had backup clones to come back 6 years after his one, and Tarkin had Admiral Dala and Maw installation, maybe. Yeah, so there's a lot of things tying in there. We could say Thrawn mirrored Palpatine in a sense of bringing himself back as a pivotal player to restore the Empire, like how Palpatine, but in a different manner. Because, Thrawn isn't force sensitive, Palpatine is. So their ways are slightly different and their abilities are slightly different, but the concept's still the same on ruling the galaxy. And so I don't think Tarkin seeded Dala there to to come back as a player for him. It's just her own thing. So that's how I see that. All right. So 0 BBY, Battle of Topra, or Toprawa, Destruction of Alderaan, and Battle of Yavin. So with Topra, or Topra, I'm always having a hard time with that word. We had Vermillion, who was the leader of that mission, who went in to infiltrate. But I'm going to go ahead and back up from that. And we're going to go to Polis Massa, which I didn't put on here. And Polis Massa is a place where some of the Death Star, like another Death Star portion of the plan was taken, or supposedly, and it was leaked out to Vader and them. So he took his 501st. It's like okay, so let's rewind a little bit more from that. We had prisoners on the Death Star stage and escape. And with that escape, they took a Death Star plan. And basically, it was an embarrassment to the 501st, right? It was an embarrassment to the 501st. So Vader was extremely pissed. And he basically said, oh, you're done relaxing here. You guys couldn't even keep these guys under bay and, recapture them, blah, blah, blah. I'm just being hyperbolic here. And so they chased after these rebels with the plans. And it was brutal, even on the 501st people. And so they went to Polis Massa because that's where supposedly the Death Star plan portion of it was taken. And it was staged. And those are the fake plans. And that's where Vader's forces really met. I guess you could say their match and stuff like that. So a very interesting piece of that, Polis Massa being brought back in. That's the birth of the twins, right? We know that's where the twins were born. And so I thought that was a very interesting piece of lore that that was shared, I guess you can say. And then we have Toprawa. And so Vermillion is the leader of that. And that's where the third plan, I guess you could say, was taken. And that's where all the plans met up, I guess you could say. And then that is where the all the plans were united and beamed up to Leia. Okay, I'll go check it out. We'll play that here pretty soon. Thank you. I'll check it out. So that's when it was beamed. Everything was beamed to Leia. This is where you see the continuity tie-ins, right? This is where they tied all the loose ends with there being, a few Death Star plans or portions of the plans that were scattered in the universe or in the galaxy. Is there any mention of Vader sensing and learning that the twins were born in? No, there wasn't. When you get into the Last of the Jedi, that is when we seen Obi-Wan Kenobi deciding that he needed to go save or help out Aaron or Olin Ferris or whatever his name is. And the bigger mission was basically Vader suspected something happening on Polis Massa, and that Force vision that was very unclear to Obi-Wan basically ended up being the mission to make sure any and all evidence of the birth of the twins, including any type of medicine and medical supplies checked out for a birth, was destroyed. So he had to go do that to clear up any other remaining evidence that was not thought of in order for Vader not to find out, suspect anything. He thought that, his child, he only thought there was one, died with Padme. And so they had to make sure that's where it stayed. That's how it stayed. All right. So again, just like A New Hope says, and just like the real lore followed to keep continuity, the plans were beamed to Leia. And Thera, what's her name? One of Han's girlfriends in the Han Solo trilogy, Theron or whatever, Bria Theron, was one of the leaders. And she was not leaders, but one of the main pivotal people. She was a part of the Corellian resistance, rebel resistance. There's different factions. You have Corellia, you had Mon Calamari, you had Chandrilla, you had Alderaan. So you had those resistance group that later on we find out that all of them at the time got together and created the Corellian Treaty, minus Akbar because he was captive. But he was still a big part of the formation of the Rebel Alliance. So you have her and a lot of them staged on ground, fighting against the Empire so that Leia can flee with the plans. So when you read Han Solo trilogy, Rebel Dawn, Leia's basically in the same vicinity as Bria Theron. And she's leaving with the Death Star's plans. And then towards the end of the book, Han is now on a Tatooine, and that's where it goes into A New Hope. So very beautifully done, without having to reveal a lot of things or even here's Leia, here's a member berry, here's Leia. We know by the lore she was there leaving with the Death Star plans. So it's very interesting bit of continuity facts there. Bria Theron was one of the few people to give Boba a hard time catching. Yeah, she was. That's interesting listening to the first few chapters of Last of the Jedi. Need to go back to it when I have time. Yeah, so book 1 and 2 basically is that story. So not the book 1 and 2, and then after that it slowly starts going off to a different approach. But that's what kicks off the book. Are the series. Very interesting. Let me see here. My favorite Disney shill meltdown is Eric Voss telling his subscribers fuck off because a Disney Star Wars show got canceled after one fucking series. Oh, I know. All the meltdowns, right? All the meltdowns. Let's see here. Vader was too messed up to sense anything since he didn't sense Padme dying. Correct. He was already there was so much going on for Vader. True. All right, let me go ahead and play that clip, but I want to read this little quote I have here. The imps have destroyed our ships. No retrieval. And even if we don't have orders to hold this comm center for as long as possible, there's nowhere for us to go on this world, and that's Bria Theron. So she's one of the forces. She's part of the Corellian resistance of the rebels. Like I said, that Garma Bel Iblis was head of. So she was part of that faction. So if you didn't know about that, another interesting lore fact there. Let me go ahead and pull up that clip that Soul Assassin shared. I thought about pulling up that clip for this. So thank you so much for doing that. I didn't even ask you if you could. And here you go. Let's see here. The 501st. And then we'll get into cringe factor. Okay, let me make sure. Why are you spinning like that? Okay. Oh, I hate when you stay on pause. I just love it when they do that. Okay. All right. Let me remove this. And am I still here? Yes, I am. Hello. Okay. I always get confused when I don't see my avatar on and I'm still on screen. Share and X. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and take a listen to this, and then we'll get into cringe factor now. We'll discuss a little bit more Operation Skyhook, and then we'll get into cringe factor. So let's go ahead and listen, because I think this is fun to listen to as well.
By the time of the raid on Polis Massa, I'm to get a little sick of the so-called rebellion. In the past, we'd secretly enjoyed putting down a local insurrection or two. They kept the troops sharp and the Empire feared. But these rebels were different. They were organized, they were growing, and they were everywhere. The raid on Polis Massa was a perfect example of how things were starting to fall apart. We were supposed to go in, wipe out a small band of rebels, and recover some stolen Imperial plans on an encrypted holodisk. Before we knew it, we were now. Even though the Polis Massa raid was only a partial success, which
So a little bit of history on that. Let me go ahead and remove. A little history on that. So puzzling us all together, you have Katarn Danuta. You have the rebel prisoners, prisoners of war breaking free from the Death Star with some plans. And then you have the plans on top Toprawa. So those three factions, there are three. So I always knew there were three. I don't know why I say two or three, but there's three. And how they staged an ambush of them on Polis Massa. So that was brilliant as well. And so there you have. So Danuta, Death Star, and Toprawa. Each one of those had a portion of the plans. And of course, they weren't successful retrieving them, of course, because we know they weren't, because, we all watched A New Hope. We know that in A New Hope, the plans were all put together and beamed to land, not carried on a disc like Disney Rogue One tells you. So very fun to look into, to research, to put together on how well pre-Disney lore, the true lore, kept continuity with the movies. People like to say, oh, it's all fucked up anyways because there were so many Death Star plans that they couldn't keep track of who had what. No, they tied everything together. And it was all called Operation Skyhook. They needed to make sure that they had all the plans, every single one, so that they can find a way to destroy that threat called the Death Star. And yeah. Yep. And thank you again. So very interesting. So the construction and destruction of the Death Star through Operation Skyhook. And within all of that, George Lucas, the game developers, the authors, all of them created a significantly amazing story that was very complex and very well put together in the long run. And people will go ahead and say, oh, Andor and Rogue One are the best things ever, blah, blah, blah. And it's better than the OT, the PT, all of this, George Lucas. That shows me and tells me these idiots have never read extensively into the EU, did their research, or even cared. They never cared. And so when these people who are supposed to be defending Star Wars against Disney, and they show their true colors, I learned that they are just grifters. They are just normies, casual fans. They don't know the lore. So when I go in there and say, hey, what about this? Or why didn't they think about Moffs going in and be, governing Moffs so that they can take control of the system and have rule over these planets, right? Crickets may occur with these people like they don't know, or they'll go ahead and gaslight me with, oh, you EU elitists, or the EU would blah, 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 because they pick and choose when they want to use the EU to solidify their narrative. That's another thing. And I've been saying this for a very, very long time, even in the beginning. These people will pick and choose their narratives and when to use the EU. And I will go back again, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again here. No one can say Luke Skywalker was destroyed if they didn't know the EU. So people who are not fans of the EU or got into the EU will all of a sudden start using the EU as this is not what Luke was supposed to be. Well, that fits their narrative, right? But then you come to Andor, and then you have them saying, oh, well, the EU, blah, blah, and they talk against the EU. So keep a lookout for these type of people because they're very dishonest, disingenuous. Because these normie fans, they have nothing to compare to what Luke was supposed to be like if they never got into the EU. So according to the movie, yeah, he had a happy ending. Everybody had a happy ending. But then that's all for them. So how do they know that Luke wasn't supposed to be this grouchy old guy who runs away from the universe when they never got to the EU? So why use the EU as evidence to what Luke is supposed to be? Well, to fit your narrative, because they didn't like Luke in the DT, right? But then again, Andor, oh no, you can't use the EU to defend or counter against Andor. So you see, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that they pick and choose this narrative, what fits their narrative. And they'll use the EU only according to their narrative, or they'll be anti-EU only according to their narrative. So that's another topic that I would like to discuss in the near future. Maybe for a cringe factor or something like that. So you can't go and say Luke never acted this way if you never knew or read the EU. Don't use something, or do your fucking research. And then, so that's the thing, do your research. So if you did your research and said, hey, this is not how they depicted Luke in the EU, well, then do the same fucking thing for everything else. All right. So speaking of continuity, gatekeeping, and all this shit, we're going to get into cringe factor. And now the topic, the rumor that Filoni's gatekeeping against Gilroy, gatekeeping against Kennedy. So let's go ahead and get into that. But I do need to freaking use the restroom now, you guys. I have to go to the refresher. So let me see. Let me play something that can be a little long, but yet won't leave you guys just with blank, no no silence air or whatever. Oh, damn. The longest one I have is this video, but let's go ahead and play it again because this is just a reminder of how well the EU is.
Someone asked me to give the best reason why someone should read the expanded universe. After giving it a lot of thought, here's what I have to say. The expanded universe respects the reader. In the expanded universe, Luke Skywalker's optimism continues where it left off in Return of the Jedi. He's fulfilled hope to the galaxy, just like Obi-Wan said he would, not like the Disney movies where he gave up on the Jedi or even the whole galaxy for that matter. The character you see in those movies is not Luke. Luke isn't a quitter. He's not a pessimist. He's a leader. He's inspirational. And he's always there for his friends in times of need. Another character is Han Solo. He's introduced to us in A New Hope as a loner, a man who cares only for himself and nobody else. But by the end of Return of the Jedi, that all turns around when he finally finds friends he can trust and a true love to spend the rest of his life with. And that's exactly what he does in the expanded universe. Han is a devoted husband and father to Leia and their kids. He loves his family above all else. In the new movies, Han turns out to be a selfish deadbeat dad who ran out on his family when things get tough. It's a complete 180 from the character that we saw from Return of the Jedi. Now, another thing the EU does is it rewards its readers. Attention to detail when it comes to continuity has never been done at such a level as when it was performed by the expanded universe. Avid readers will constantly be rewarded for their diligence as comics, novels, video games, and even children's books share connections throughout the entire series, making it almost a flawless, continuous story. And though it has its minor flaws, it's still the best overall story and continuity out there, period. That's what the EU does. It respects and rewards its readers. And that's the best reason you should give it a try. Long live the expanded universe.
Long live the expanded universe, and then we'll get another reminder about Filoni here.
And I've always leaned towards if we're going to create something, we should check and see if it existed already to the fans. Because it has way more value if we bring that in. And It's like, why would I just replace it with something new? So if we're going to do an admiral, if we're going to do a big military leader, yeah, I could create a new guy, sure. But what about Thrawn? Thrawn is great. Thrawn is a character we all know. Thrawn has a lot of credibility. So then you ask yourself, is it right to use him? And can we use him in a way that's similar to the books? Or are we using him and it's going to go completely into left field? And there have been times when we wanted to use things from the EU and I was like, yeah, but we can't use it that way. So why? I don't want to use it and change it. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want to use it and make it something completely different. That's rude.
CAF. Lots of it. For me and for the Ready Room. I have a feeling this mission is not one we can fly in our sleep.
So uncivilized.
All right. So this time we are not going to my usual source for cringe factor. In fact, that park place or the park place or whatever it's called is the contributor to cringe factor. As soon as it pulls up, here we go. Let me see here. Why aren't you showing on my screen? You guys see it? There we go. Let's go ahead and do this arrangement here. All right. So here we go. So that park place is the contributing factor to cringe factor. Why not? Why not? Right? Let's see here. Matt is a true EU fan, but his voice is too soft. I like my version with Tim narrating with the Howdy Spacers voice. Hey, that's fine. We all have have our voices and how we express ourselves. I don't mind listening to Matt, and I don't mind listening to Tim. And so there you go. All right, so let's see here. So it plays by Marvin Montanaro. I want to say Montanaro or something like that. Montanaro. Is Dave Filoni gatekeeping Star Wars? New reports suggest Filoni Gilroy internal battle as Lucasfilm creative chief rejects stories that don't match his rumors. We just shifted the goalpost in the Civil War at Lucasfilm, didn't we? And I think this is quite funny. Really, really funny, because they're paving him as a savior because Gilroy is aligning with Kennedy. If you haven't heard the latest rumor, Kennedy brought causing a civil war. However, Filoni is not the person to hire. It is Kennedy who is one of the main people of hiring and bringing in these writers and what have you. So I think it's quite funny that part plays. Oh, I hate when things like this happen. Let me go ahead and close out a couple windows here. Okay, so that part plays faux show frauds. Faux show. All right, and let's see here. Oh yeah. Oh, I hate when that happens. Oh yeah, another Lucasfilm Civil War believer. And Filoni gatekeeping Star Wars. How laughable. Correct. Let's see here. A bombshell allegation is making the rounds in the entertainment world. One that might finally explain the creative logjam at Lucasfilm. Okay, what creative logjam? I mean, they just don't give a shit about their continuity. So I don't know what you're talking about here. According to new report, Dave Filoni could be gatekeeping Star Wars, rejecting pitches that don't align with his vision of what Star Wars should be. So this is basically rumors. I'm not going to play the video here, but there's of our podcast, Joanna Robinson, a pop culture commentator and podcaster. So no, pop culture commentator and podcaster. That's all she is. With industry access, where do we see this? What does this remind you of? Sparrow dropped a major claim. Their little birdie chirped on her shoulder too. According to her, multiple insiders say Anbore, the critically acclaimed series from Tony Gilroy, is disliked by many within Lucasfilm. The reason it doesn't fit Dave Filoni's narrow definition of what Star Wars. You notice how they're coining Dave Filoni as George Lucas now? I'm just pointing that out. And because of that, pitches that take the franchise in fresh directions are allegedly getting blocked before they even get off the ground. You know what? This is all being complained, and Andor's already done. What the hell? It's done. What are they fucking trying to say? It's done. What's the complaint here? It's fucking done. Everything that's here shares that, or everything that we see that has been seen in Andor shares that the stories were approved, that it made it through, what have you. All right. I have heard so many other people who have gone to pitch Lucasfilm and have not made it past the Filoni wall. The Filoni wall? What the fuck? She said, and Tony Gilroy sort of snuck his way around via his relationship with Kathleen Kennedy. Oh my God. Oh, holy shit. Oh my God. This is all funny. The goalpost has been shifted, ladies and gentlemen. The Civil War has evolved into now Gilroy versus Filoni, with Kennedy on Tony Gilroy's side. And have you noticed that everybody's praising Tony Gilroy? So why not praise Kathleen Kennedy? She's the one that made it happen. But yet Kathleen Kennedy is the bad person. She's the boogeyman. She's the one that is the main destroyer of Star Wars as we know it. Right? But Filoni hasn't done shit. He had destroying Star Wars since 2008, right? Right? You know, he's gatekeeping. He is keeping the keeping what made Star Wars great. He's keeping in line with that. He's protecting it. He's the savior. You see what's going on here? It's like this mental fucking gymnastic that's going on right now is fucking hilarious, you guys. Holy shit, you know. And when I seen this in the last past few days, I just couldn't help but laugh to myself. Like the straw manning, the mental gymnastics, all of the shit that's going on to keep this like civil war within Lucasfilm bullshit rhetoric going on. It is fucking hilarious. Holy shit. He was sitting under his desk. Oh my god. Yes, Gatekeepers Alliance, we'll get into that here pretty soon. Oh my god. Robinson calls it the Filoni Wall, and it paints a disturbing picture of a creative bottleneck where one man's preference are dictating the future of a billion-dollar franchise. But then again, remember, and I should have got the clip that was shared a while ago, like 5 or 6 years ago. But it was confirmed that the story group has no say in any type of retcons. They can't go and course correct any type of retcons or what have you that films make. But then again, when Disney purchased Lucasfilm, they said that they were gonna make Star Wars more coherent as a single continuity, right? Because they allegedly said that it wasn't done before, right? Right? But we just proved that wrong with talking about Operation Skyhook. But anyways, so you see how they're not even clear with their message. Like, they don't give a fuck about anything. They don't give a shit about continuity. Filoni never gave a shit about fucking continuity. But all of a sudden, he's gatekeeping and he has this wall trying to keep it all together. All right, so here we go. Andor's internal opposition. Despite widespread praise from fans and critics, like, oh my God, people fucking are so fucking sheeple, wanting to believe critics all the fucking time when you know that there is pay under the table, all of that. Andor was reportedly treated as a nuance internally. Robinson noted that many within Lucasfilm, excluding Kathleen Kennedy, didn't like the way Andor is constantly referred to as "quote unquote" the good one. She says there's been a quiet civil war between Filoni's camp and Gilroy's style. Quiet? Well, it's not so fucking quiet because it's, you know, being talked of. You know, the bird chirped loud, with the latter only succeeding thanks to Kennedy's personal support. That's a stunning admission. If Andor's success as a path forward, Lucasfilm appears more interested in preserving the status quo. And the status quo means funneling nearly everything through Filoni's lens, a tactic that hasn't been working well for Disney Star Wars. Okay, you know what? I might be fucking crazy. Maybe you guys are with me. Maybe you guys all went crazy with me. But since Andor, like before the lead up to Anbore, excuse me, and going into each block of the 3 episodes and up to the conclusion, Star Wars, Lucasfilm has been hyping up Andor to no ends. But then they're saying Lucasfilm is appearing to be more interested in preserving the status quo than funding through everything through Filoni's lens instead of hyping up Andor. That's fucking nonsense, because we've been seeing the hype up of Andor through Star Wars, through Lucasfilm. Celebration as well. Their Celebration as well. This doesn't fucking make sense whatsoever. Another rumor that people are trying to do to make a grift, to make it look like there's still a continued civil war. This time, like it has shifted from Lucas's Padawan to corporate Sith. Oh my God, they fucking went there from Lucas's Padawan. Holy shit. Oh, Dave Filoni rose to prominence as George Lucas's close collaborator on the Clone Wars. For a time, many fans believed he was a chosen heir to Lucas' creative legacy. Holy shit. Oh my God, we're going down that fucking narrative because this person's trying to bash him, which in a way she's bashing him, but in a way, oh my God, this is so convoluted, contrived. Holy shit. But over the years, that reputation has eroded. No, it's been eroding since he was hired, since he's been revealing himself from 2008 on. Filoni's own project, mostly notably the widely panned Ahsoka series, have failed to resonate with general audiences. Despite heavy marketing and fanfare, critics called Ahsoka dull, bloated, and utterly boring. Yet instead of course correcting, Lucasfilm has doubled down. And again, they're going to critics as a source, when we know critics have never been reliable in any way, shape, or form. Not even when they praise something that is good that I may like. I don't follow them as a means to confirm. And George has spoken out about critics as well. But let's go on. Even more telling, Filoni has been one of the most aggressively promoted supporters of The Acolyte, a series that has already divided fans before its release thanks to its overt political messaging and focus on ideological themes. All right, so they're saying he supported it. We all know that. So has Kennedy. We all know that. And we all know that Kennedy supports Andor. But here's the trend. Whenever something's bad, it's Kennedy's fault. She's awful. She's this. She's destroying Star Wars. And whenever something's good, she never gets the praise. See here? Far from being a guardian of Lucasfilm or Lucas's vision, he's not a fucking guardian. He's been destroying the very foundation as well. He's been contributing to the destruction of George Lucas's vision. Polarized output. Oh, and look at here. Kennedy, Filoni, and Headland. But yet they're putting her up on a pedestal with Gilroy. But, hey, what can you say? If Filoni is gatekeeping Star Wars and filtering all pitches before they make it up to the ladder, it could explain why we've seen such formulaic storytelling from Lucasfilm in the years since Filoni was made the chief creative officer. Notably, there have been 3 different series, Ahsoka, The Acolyte, Tales of the Empire, that focus on witches and witchcraft with aggressive, progressive, ideological messaging. And you know what? But Andor still made it through without the aggressive political ideological messaging. However, there was still people who are praising Andor, especially on our side, are failing to share all of that. Because it's so good, they're willing to overlook it. That's the only difference. Another bit of hypocrisy, right? Another, they're forgetting to share all the messaging that's happening in Andor as well, because it's so fucking good, right? It has been pointed out by many that Filoni's wife, Annie Convery, once listed her pronouns on social media. I don't give a shit about pronouns. I'm the least of the ones that are standing up against Disney that I don't really call out pronouns, really. I can give care less. Yes, it's an indicator that some people are fucking crazy, but still, thing I like to point that I point out, many do, and so I don't, like, if you do, that's fine. That's you. That's your points. That's what you're gonna go with and stuff. That's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't. My approach is different. She also posted photos of herself drinking from a mug that featured pentagrams, along with a slew of other media that shows her in a witch hat or otherwise celebrating fictional witches. There is paganism, which witches come from a European culture of paganism that are coined to be bad by religions. And so anything that's earth-based, that's non-organized religion, is seen to be as heathen, witches, paganism, what have you, and my people themselves. And I'm not defending her. No way am I defending her. I'm just pointing out historical facts that are deemed in those lines to be the devil, paganism, all of that, heathen, bad. We must save you from yourselves, basically. And so this is what I'm getting from this right here. I agree that Filoni's using his wife's beliefs to pitch his storylines and what he's doing, which I kind of find funny and ironic, or not ironic, but I just find funny, and it's polarizing, basically, due to the fact that when the Dathomiri witches were created, and the Night Sisters and so forth, their use of the Force, they never recognize their abilities as the Force, because they didn't see the Force or know what the Force was. So they always thought it was just magic or something, but it was really the Force. And it is really like the dark side versus the light side on Dathomir, but seen in a different perspective. But Filoni completely changed this around and is altering the storyline that was created in Courtship of Princess Leia to fit him and his wife ideologies, right? And so I get where this person's coming from, and I think it's wrong in a sense to change that perspective, that the Force is the magic, or what the hell's going on in there. The Force is the magic, basically, if you want to label it as that. So, and so his changing of that. So it's altogether possible, through, although not confirmed, that it pushes towards witches in Star Wars is completely directly from the Filoni family. Not necessarily. You have not read Courtship of Princess Leia. He just took the concept of witches in the lore and completely changed it. That's all. So let's see here. Filoni changed Ventress species to Dathomir, incorrect. One thing that ruined Star Wars for me was giving Anakin a Padawan. Yeah, and that's one major thing that I do not agree with George and Filoni about. Isn't his wife have some interest in witchcraft? That's the rumor that she does. And if she does, she does. I mean, that's fine. What she does in her own private life, I don't give a shit, really. But we see the influences, right? Like I said, we see the influences through Filoni. The journalists want Star Wars to be grounded like Anbore. Andore's not fucking grounded. I just proved that Anbore is a mere speck of bastardization of what the Rebel Alliance was about, formation of it, Operation Skyhook, even the construction and destruction of the Death Star. So let's see here. Let's finish up this article and start wrapping this up. Let's see here. Filoni Gatekeeper is no problem. If gatekeeping allegations is true, it confirms long-standing fear that the Filoni base, fear from the fan base. Lucasfilm's creative stagnation may not just be incompetence; it might be internal. Well, it's internal incompetence. It's internal incompetence. Creators with new ideas are reportedly hitting a wall unless their work conforms to a very specific set of tastes defined by Filoni himself. Andor, despite its critical success, now looks like an exception that proved the rule. And if internal resistance to that kind of storytelling continues, it may be a long time before we see anything like that again. So all this is them confirming that they want better Disney Star Wars. They are not in lieu of anti-Disney and I guess the stance against Disney. They don't care if Disney owns it as long as it fits what they want it to be. That's all that's going on here. And so all of this is being contrived into Filoni gatekeeping, and Anbore, Tony Gilroy, and Kathleen Kennedy has produced the best Star Wars ever under Disney Lucasfilm. That's all. That is it. The Ella Bird thing that follows Ahsoka around was suspected to be inspired by Filoni's wife. Yeah, and I've seen that too. I was reading the Revenge of the Sith book. I love how Filoni's girlfriend isn't even mentioned. Correct. So what do you guys think? I think this is a grift and this is a bullshit thing. Another bullshit account of a civil war happening, and all because they want to stir and make controversy and drama. Everything under Tony, under Filoni, under Disney, basically for Star Wars is not Star Wars. And it is not Star Wars. So this is a contrived, made up goalpost move of a civil war, basically. And that's it. That is it. And this goes to show that people don't care about the foundation of Star Wars that was created by George Lucas and what came before. If they want stories more like Tony Gilroy, it's not going to look like Star Wars. It is not going to look like Star Wars whatsoever. So with that being said, we're closing out here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and hanging out with me, as always, for CAF Chat. Going over the lore. Hopefully learned a lot about like the construction and destruction of the Death Star under Operation Skyhook, the formation of the Rebel Alliance, and the factions of rebels that came together under and through the treaty of the Corellian Treaty as well, which we did cover a few Thursdays ago. So with that, you have the full picture of what has gone on under the true lore, not what's happening now, because they can barely even touch or even get their story straight with what's really has happened with the Death Star, with the rebels, and the formation of the Rebel Alliance leading up to the destruction of the first Death Star. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning. Weekend coming up. And with that being said, Gatekeepers Alliance, we are having a celebration starting on, let me get my phone, on the 23rd, I believe it is. I could get this wrong. So Purist, help me out here if you can. Let me get to my phone here. Yeah, so the 23rd, Friday, is on Grizzy Live. 24th, Malvin's, and 25th, and all the dynamics behind that, exposing the shills behind that, and all that, all the shill talk, all of that. It's going to be fun. 24th goes into the shill watching and stuff like that. And then 26th is going to be on Star Wars Marvel. Pierce is putting together some panels and all this other stuff. So check it out on his channel. Let's see here. The 19th, which is a Monday, I will have a Revenge of the Sith celebration live, and we're going to go over the concept art of Revenge of the Sith. So I'm switching it up, not necessarily talking about behind the scenes development, like other than the art part of it and so on. So we're going to do that. And tomorrow, the space scene, we will be returning with Tim on the spacing. So stay tuned for that for more information. So thank you guys again for tuning in. And as always, may the force be with you. And I shall see you tomorrow night. And I don't think Raging Rhino has any productions going on this week. So no announcement with that. So see you guys here soon. And talk to you guys later. May the force be with you. Have a good day.
Another happy landing.